I am glad to welcome you to my channel. If this is your first time here, then postpone watching this video and watch the very first video on this channel. This video is called "What is this channel about?" Steve Jobs is a great progressor. Today I will tell you about a unique phenomenon. So far, one of a kind. So far, the only time in the history of mankind, since the time of Pythagoras, civilization was moved by a man who did not enter the crow's nest, and was not a black, not even a white cult. And that man was Steve Jobs. Moreover, it was Jobs who single-handedly turned the tide of history. And for a while, he sowed panic in the nests, confusing their plans for several decades to come. And that's at least. As we know, since ancient times, all scientific and applied knowledge has been generated by adherents of the crow's nest cult. Of course, there were so-called geek and techno freaks who tried to do something on their own. In their garage, or even in the kitchen, and naturally they did not succeed. In very rare cases, local craftsmen could develop small and tricky everyday life hacks. Steve Jobs was one such techno freak. From childhood he grew up among engineers, he was saturated with this spirit. This is the first time a nest has made such a global blunder. They didn't even follow Jobs initially. The nest was responsible for the North and Central American region, had in its control, and in its full control, Microsoft. It was through this company that all the developments in the field of it and were initially merged in stages. And Bill Gates acted only as a frontman. He personified this huge company, through which technology is introduced. All the nests just in time for the millennium. In the New Year's week from December 25th, 1999 to January 3rd, 2000, a worldwide gathering of progressors and analysts from all nests was held, at which a single model for the development of civilization for 30 years was approved. A decision was made to develop digital farms. According to the concept of the nests, already by 2015, the entire civilized world, and this is completely all of Northern and Central America, Western Europe, the most developed Asian countries and certain regions of the Middle East and the Australian region, should be in digital slavery, on digital farms. That is, near their stationary, home computers. And the rest of the world was supposed to serve them. And by 2030, absolutely the whole world had to sit down at their stationary pack. And would serve people, automatic and autonomous mechanisms, which would have been introduced, with the necessary results, by the year 2025. Food, housing, clothing and even entertainment would no longer be needed with the direct participation of a person. For the purposes, it was planned to completely plunge a person into a digital sleep. And one experimental module was the Matrix movie. It was released at the beginning of the 1990 year, and by the end of the year managed to roll around the world. And for the gathering of all nests in New Year's Millennium Week, the results and reviews from the film were on the table of all progressors and analysts of all nests. After the rally, the decision was made. The digital QLED was finally and irrevocably approved. By the year 2015, the entire civilized world must be chained exclusively to the monitors of their home computers. All people would perform imaginary work behind the monitors of the same home computers, for which they would be lecturing money that they could provide for their existence. And far from being comfortable. According to calculations, a person should spend no more than 3 hours a day on this unnecessary work. The rest of the time, or at least most of it, a resident of a civilized country should spend on networks at his own discretion. And then, naturally, everything that people would do would be tracked. All requests, all searches, every action. Every step on the World Wide Web would be personally tracked and analyzed. And people would be automatically sorted. The number of invitations to the nest would increase dramatically. The recognition of persons who concentrate the energy so necessary for the cult would increase. Everything that the representatives of the cult have done directly with their own hands for millennia could be automated. And according to the most optimistic forecasts, by the mid-30s, the cult could have reached the desired singularity. But it all shattered on January 9, 2007, when Steve Jobs introduced the first iPhone. Then it became clear to everyone that you can forget about stationary farms. Jobs put a personal computer in everyone's pocket. After that, it became clear that it would be impossible to collect objective data, even if you will receive all the information from the devices house reigned in the nest that was responsible for the American region. This was a global oversight. Several dozen analysts responsible for this area, and most importantly for scouting, fell out of the nest. And they fell to death. Naturally, after the presentation of the first iPhone, Jobs was immediately invited to the nest, but here the American nest made another fatal mistake. Steve Jobs was shown immediately into progressors to the 10th level. Of course, he deserved this step in all respects, but a small nuance was not taken into account. Jobs gushed with hidden energy. Due to these internal energy deposits, he achieved the same success as the progressors from the nests. Having passed the initiation immediately to the 10th stage, he gained access to the energies used by the progressors. And this excessive energy burned his body from the inside. Physically, his body could not withstand such a concentration of energy flows, and as a result burned not only his body, but also his consciousness. After that, an emergency meeting of all nests took place. The American nest was finally cleaned up. Higher rank progressors have been disbanded for other nests. And the American nest had already been reassembled from the adepts that were in other nests. Jobs is unique in this reality. He almost single-handedly surpassed and ruined the plans of the entire cult. He became part of the cult. And if the responsible nest for his region did not degrade so much that at least it allowed Steve Jobs to be incorporated into the cult painlessly and gradually, we would now live in a completely different world. History is happening before our eyes. Compared to biblical stories, Jobs would have taken the place of at least John the Baptist. And the person who comes after him and gives the world ubiquitous, wireless, high-speed and free internet, he can rightfully consider himself the new Jesus Christ, who will completely free people. Let me remind you that you can support the channel with a crypt. A wallet for cryptocurrency is in the description.